Would I be it if I don't let my husband's female friend stay with us for a few days while she's grieving? Husband, 32 meters, and I, 27F, have been together 3 years, and to preface this post, he has never given me reason to doubt him. He works remotely while I work in person MF, and don't get home until 6:37ish p.m. most days. Earlier today he texted me saying he spoke to an old friend, 33 apparently, of his because she moved to a city 3 hours from us, and after hearing about the things that happened in her life recently, invited her to come stay with us for a few days. He told me that both her parents and her brother passed away within a few months of each other recently, around a year ago, and she only has a sister left as part of her family now who she's away from Adam. She also recently broke up with her BF who she had been dating for a few years, not sure who broke up with whom. He said she seemed very distraught during their phone call, and he didn't really know what to say or how to console her, that he felt really bad for her, especially because she's mostly alone now. She said she was off from Thursday to Sunday next week, so he invited her to come and stay with us for that time. This woman used to be his coworker at the first job he worked, probably more than 8 years ago now. I know and have met most of his friends, but this is the first time I'm hearing of her, but it might be understandable because I haven't met people he knew from 8 years ago unless they live close by. What really pissed me off was that he didn't ask me if it would be okay, more or less just gave me a heads up that he invited her, maybe just assumed I'd be okay with it. No idea why. I'm not comfortable with a female friend of his being in our home alone with him for a few days while I'm not around for most of the day. I don't know this person or what they're thinking, so while I trust my husband, I don't trust her. Grief and loss also make you act in ways you might not normally act in, and the fact that she had a recent breakup isn't comforting either, so I feel like letting this happen would be like inviting trouble into my marriage. I also know for a fact that if something inappropriate happened, even if she initiated it and my husband shut it down, I would lose trust in him for bringing this situation about despite me not being okay with it. Would I be it if I said I don't want her in our home while I'm not around? We're going to talk about it when I get home in a few hours. Edit. A few things to add. 1. I think hubby just feels bad for her and how her life turned out, so this is coming out of a place of concern for her more than anything else. It's definitely like him to bend over backwards to make someone else feel better. I think they were close friends when they worked together, but it's definitely a little odd that I haven't heard anything about her before this because he told me about other people he worked with at the time. I even met a couple of them. She also wasn't invited to our wedding. 2. There's also a cultural context involved. Hubby and I are from the same culture, and it's not normal in our culture for a man or woman, especially if married, to be hanging out with someone of the opposite gender alone unless they're blood related. It's not seen as distrust so much as just a respect thing. My dad won't even be in the same room alone as my aunt, his brother's wife, and she's been part of the family for 30+ years. It's similar in my husband's family. Hubby and I are not anywhere that strict and will go out for meals with opposite gender friends from time to time, but always making sure the other person is invited if they want to come, and is okay with it if they don't want to come. This is pushing it though even for me, and for him to assume I'd just be fine with this is super weird. Sorry, this became so long. Am I the asshole for telling my daughter she knows nothing? I, 41F, have a daughter who is 17, and her father and I divorced when she was 7. We had a very rocky marriage, during which I was a stay-at-home mom, and I struggled a lot financially afterwards. Because of this, during our divorce, my ex-husband and I agreed that our daughter would live mainly with him, and I received alimony payments from him for about 4 years after our divorce. For the first several years after the divorce, my daughter would stay with me every other weekend and several holidays, the specific holidays depending on the year, and I always enjoyed our time together, but it would often feel like she didn't want to see me. She was never interested in any activities or occasions that I planned for us, and normally when I called to talk to her, she would be busy with school, an extracurricular activity, or something else. Usually when she would spend the night with me, she'd ask about the divorce and why her father and I aren't together anymore. I'd always tried to be as honest as possible with her, but I could tell the divorce had been hard for her, and when she started high school she stopped visiting altogether. She and I have been low contact for the past few years, and this past weekend we had an argument regarding her graduation. She's graduating from high school this June, and I texted her to ask about the details. She responded with a very passive-aggressive text asking if I would actually come, and how she didn't want to waste a ticket. I wasn't sure where it was coming from, so I called her and she started ranting about how I was never around, and that I always blamed her father for everything, and how I cared about my students more than her. I'm a high school teacher. I interrupted her and told her that she knows nothing about what happened between her father and I. I told her that she made her choice to stop visiting and not to answer when I call her, and that she couldn't blame anyone else for that, and she hung up. About an hour later, she sent me a long text about how much I hurt her and that she didn't want me at her graduation and that I needed to change. Since that night, I've gotten several messages from my ex-husband's family about how I'm a terrible mother and how I should have been more involved when my daughter was younger, and I'm not sure how to handle this. AITA. My partner, 32M, told me he needed to see the girl who got away to close that door. Is there any way I, 26F, can move past this? Am I stupid to even try? I've been seeing this guy for about 9 months. I have really enjoyed dating him and everything was going pretty smooth until now. He is a medical student, so very busy schedule, but we've been making it work. His breaks from class are when we get to spend most of our time together, and he's currently on spring break. Well, he comes to town to see me and tells me that we need to talk and that there was a girl he briefly dated 8 years ago. They didn't end on the best of terms, which he said always bothered him for some reason. He then tells me that he was out of town and met her to briefly talk, and she tried to come on to him, but he denied it due to our relationship. I could have probably moved past this and talked through it. But then he tells me instead of seeing me that night, he needs to go see her to get drinks. He says he knows they're not meant to be together, but he hasn't been able to fully shut that door, and that seeing her will finally help close that chapter for him. I blew up when he told me. I ended things immediately and stormed off. I did come back after an hour so we could further discuss, which we did for quite a few hours. I told him how uncomfortable I am with him pretty much going on a date with a girl and that it's unfair for him to expect me to wait around to be a second option. He says I'm not a second option, nor does he expect me to wait. This is a him thing and he needs to do it for him. Now I could maybe try to move past all of this until he admitted to me yesterday that she stayed over. He is insistent there was nothing physical between them, but it's crappy either way. I do want to briefly add that I was in a 9-year relationship before this that ended in my partner cheating on me and leaving me for the other girl, which he does know because we have discussed our last relationships extensively. So this just is, I guess, opening those wounds again. I'm stuck in a pickle here. I know I don't deserve to be treated this way. I honestly feel really stupid even considering trying to work things out. But I guess my mind and heart just aren't aligning right this second. And cutting ties at 9 months wouldn't be that big of a deal, but good old feelings get in the way. Update. Although I did end things the other day, I just texted him to reiterate that we are done and wished him luck. I know I deserve better than someone who was unsure of me. A second update that is somewhat funny. He let her stay the night because they were both so drunk and he pissed in the bed. Earth is my galactic punishment. Earth is my galactic punishment. You are hereby sentenced to 3,000 consecutive solar years or 100 life cycles, whatever comes last. The judge slammed his gavel down. My arbitrator leaned over. Sorry, Cole, we did all we could. You will serve out your sentences on the planet locally known as Earth and are forbidden from all positions of leadership, both major and minor. You will not directly influence any of the advancement that the local population may achieve. The judge continued. I spoke up with anger. This can't be legal. Out of order. The judge yelled while slamming his hammer down repeatedly. Bailiff, take this convict to CRISPR cell 3. I started to protest, kick, and scream, but I was hit in the back of the head and everything went blank. I was awoken, or at least something woke me up. Reflexively, I swatted at the unknown thing before my eyes even opened. My brain mused to itself, what an odd dream. That's when the half-panicked thought occurred to me. Why did only one of my 4 arms move? As I stumbled to my feet, my eyes blinked wildly as they were not expecting the sudden blindness of the sun. After a moment of squinting, I was finally able to focus. Looking down, I realizing I was naked. Taking stock of myself, I counted 1, 2. I trembled as examined the rest of my body. 2 arms, 2 legs and feet. My reproductive parts seemed to be intact. A small miracle, but my ears were different. Shorter, maybe. I really wasn't sure. Who actually knows how large their ears are? Hey kid, you must be the new guy. Looking the way of the voice, I could see a short version of, well, whatever I am now. His hair was a dirty black and thinning. His skin was a tanned olive to a dark red. His face had what looked like stubble or maybe shot hair. In his hand was a long stick with an exaggerated hook at its end. He wore a lightweight cloth that covered his upper torso all the way to his knees. He was standing amongst a group of short grazing and bleeding animals. Who are you and how is it that you can speak my language? He just laughed. You're speaking Roman. I guess they didn't give you the presentation. Presentation? Well, you better follow me before you burn. I'm your jailer. We have a lot to talk about.